Hey everybody, Shane here, Shoebox Legends. Thanks for tuning in for another episode today. Really excited to get to this one. Going to look at some great baseball cards, the majority of which I've never shown here prior on the channel, and they all fit a common theme, and that is how I collected the year 2024. That might sound a little bit strange, but we're going to get into what I mean by that. And the longer that I've been in the hobby, I've been through a bunch of different phases of collecting. Player collecting, team collecting, set collecting. I've really dabbled in just about everything, autographs, etc. And what I've really settled on in recent years, or sort of moved into, is my collection being a representation of the game of baseball across its history. And for that reason, I really get into both vintage and modern cards. I like them both because I don't see that much of a distinction. I understand the differences, obviously. But overall, I never really understood the folks who are just firmly in one camp or the other and can't even consider, modern if you're a vintage guy or vintage if you're a modern guy. To me, they tell the story of our nation's pastime, which is really one long, uninterrupted history from, the days well before I was born or took my first breath right up until today. And so I enjoy all of it. And getting into, my collection being a representation of baseball history, I try to find a few cards each year in my modern collection that are kind of meaningful or significant for that actual baseball season. In the same way that I want, a 1965 Willie Mays, because he had maybe one of the best years of his career and won an MVP in 1965. I want some of the cards that we're going to look at today that I think do a good job of summarizing the 2024 season. And what we're going to look at, this little stack and this one card here represent really the sum total of my 2024 Topps or baseball collection. There might be a couple of outliers that didn't make the video, but I've been really restrictive this year and just picking up the singles that I want to target. And there'll be a couple of common themes that we're going to see. And we're going to start with this card here, the one you've been looking at in the background as I've been gabbing away. Josh Gibson. Not going to get into the topic here in today's video, but obviously Major League Baseball integrated the statistics from the Negro Leagues this year, and Josh Gibson was a big name involved in that, and Topps has issued more Josh Gibson cards, I think, this year than they probably ever have in their history. I did pledge independently of that before the year started to focus on the Negro Leagues and former Negro Leaguers in my collection, so it's been kind of a happy coincidence that took place. And this is a card that I wanted to track down. I'm sure many of you have seen this, but in this year's Topps Update release, Josh got a card for becoming the all-time batting leader after the integration of those statistics. And again, regardless of how you feel about that, separate debate, I think this is just a really cool piece of cardboard. And what I've tracked down here is the Topps Black Parallel. So these are serial numbered, typically to the number of years that Topps has been doing baseball cards. So they started all the way back in 2003, were the first Topps Blacks, and they continue on to this day in 2024 Topps Update. So this is a checklist card with that great Josh Gibson image on the front and kind of tribute to him. And here's the serial numbering in the lower right, numbered to 74. So this is the only card that we're going to look at today that is not an active player per se, but still represents something important that happened in the game and in our hobby in the year 2024. And so I think for that reason deserves to be part of my small collection of this year's cards. Next up, I have one card that I have shown here before, but it certainly merits inclusion in this video. Recently got this Bobby Witt Jr. Topps Chrome Sapphire Edition Gold, numbered to 50, just a gorgeous card. Got the great Superman pose here from Bobby. This guy had a tremendous season, and if it wasn't for the fairy tale World Series and postseason that developed between the Yankees and Dodgers, which we'll talk more about in a minute, I think you'd be hearing a lot more nationally about Bobby Witt Jr. Not that we don't, and I think those that are plugged into the game are well aware at this point of how talented this guy is, but won a batting title for the first time in his career this year, clubbed 30 home runs for the second straight year, and also for the first time in his career, surpassed 100 runs scored and 100 runs driven in. Both of those marks being set for the first time in just his age 24 campaign. So Bobby Witt Jr. is one of the promising young stars in the game. I don't have a wide collection of his stuff, but given the year that he put together, felt it important to at least have one nice 2024 Bobby Witt Jr., given that he did win that batting title and was the only player in the league other than Aaron Judge to post a Fangraphs WAR of 10 or more in this past season. So he actually had a better WAR than Shohei Ohtani, who everybody has been talking about as one of the darlings of baseball this past season. So Bobby Witt Jr., great card there. That one I have shown before. And since he led the American League in batting, I went ahead and added a really cheap pickup of the National League batting title holder, Luis Arias, who won it again this year. I think it might be like, I should have looked it up, might be like his third batting title already. He's like a singles machine, so he's not widely loved in the hobby. He doesn't club home runs like some of the guys we're going to look at in the latter stage of today's video, but I love, he maybe reminds me of like Wade Boggs. I'm not saying he's a Wade Boggs caliber player, but it's really cool to see, italics in the batting average column on the back of a card kind of starting to add up, just like they did back in the day for like Boggs and Gwynn. So yeah, I was correct. Looks like this will be his third straight batting title here in 2024. Now this card, because no one cares about Luis Arias, was like $7. This is the Independence Day parallel. And this is another one like Topps Black that you're going to see a common theme of through today's video. Luis started his season with Florida, but then was dealt to the Padres. So he does have a card in 2024 Topps Update with the Padres, and I would like to track down the Independence Day version of that as well. I'm sure I can find one readily for under $20. But this is a great parallel that's been around for now 7 years, and Fanatics did a great job with it in 2024. I've heard many people say it, and I agree, but these are the best versions of this parallel since the inaugural year back in 2018. Love the flag motif and the limited serial numbering as they are every year to 76. So there are your AL and NL batting champs represented in this small collection. And now we're going to get into kind of some of the stars that we just got through seeing in the Fall Classic. And we're going to start with Aaron Judge. He's a player that I've come to appreciate more over the last few years. Of course, he's a big part of my collection because I do collect the home run record season cards and related cards. But in this case, Aaron led the league in WAR in 2024 with like an 11.2 Fangraphs WAR. So he is going to be part of my Warlords collection as well. So this card here will serve multiple purposes, be part of my 2024 overall collection, but also as the War Leader, a part of that Warlords collection. Of course, I think Yankees fans and maybe many baseball fans would have liked to have seen Aaron have a better postseason overall. But regardless, he paced the entire MLB with 58 home runs. It looked for a while like he was going to challenge his own record of 62 that he just set 2 years back. At the time that I'm recording this, I think he's the front runner, the obvious front runner for AL MVP, with Bobby Witt Jr. being kind of a dark horse or a sneaky candidate. But really happy to have tracked down his Topps Black. Most of you know this, but these Topps Black, Independence Day, these highly desirable parallels that are numbered, under 100, they really do kind of dry up quickly. And if you don't find them shortly after release, it can be a long wait and an expensive end to that wait when you do finally track them down in the future. And then was lucky enough to pair up with that Topps Black his Independence Day parallel as well. And I love the photograph here. Again, everything I just said about Independence Day holds true for this card as well. I got really lucky on this one due to a poor eBay listing. Whoever listed this, they did not use the term Independence Day at all. They called it like a Topps American flag parallel or something like that. So I suspect almost nobody found the listing based on that. And I was able to get this at a really, like a steal of a price for a 2024 Judge card. And I thought it would pair up, really nicely there with the Topps Black. So a player that further defined his legacy, despite the Yankees losing ultimately in the World Series, certainly added to his legacy this past season with another 58 home runs towards his counting stats and likely another MVP to add to his accolades. So great season for Aaron Judge, and very, very honored to have that pair. Next up, we got one that I bought during the World Series. I bought into the FOMO, I will admit it freely. But for those who watched the World Series this year, you know, Freddie Freeman was an absolute beast, beginning with, you know, in game one, a walk-off grand slam, and then just continuing on from there. Easily the most important player for the Dodgers in that series. And a game or two into the Fall Classic, I bought this one because I really thought about it. And, you know, given that performance, that historic performance, that was like late 70s Reggie Jackson level postseason dominance. I really thought Freddie needed to be included in my collection for 2024. Found this Independence Day out there and was able to get this on a best offer for well under $50. Not exactly a bargain. I don't think Freddie Freeman, you know, demands like Aaron Judge type pricing, but really, really grateful that I was able to track down, again, one of the 76 copies of the Freddie Freeman. And, you know, as you start to see all these laid out together, you can kind of get a sense for what I was going for with my kind of summary of this year, which was one of the most fun baseball seasons that I can remember, certainly as an adult. I've heard others say this as well. I just had a blast following Major League Baseball throughout the regular season and the postseason in 2024. And it was definitely a season that I'll remember fondly for a long time. The other thing I'll say as we get into the final three cards here, I've tried to really stick to the flagship Topps release and some of those parallels, occasionally dipping into Topps Chrome, but I don't really stray far into a lot of other brands. I hear a lot of criticism about modern cards, and there's just too many sets, too many parallels. I agree with that. I don't disagree. And I think, you know, a safe bet if you are collecting modern is to kind of stick to the classics, and Topps flagship is about as classic as it gets. And with that being said, let's get into the final three cards. The first two of which I've shown before, but of course I have to include in my collection of 2024, Mookie Betts. And I have this wonderful Independence Day that I was gifted by my good friend and yours, Dylan, from Double D Vintage Baseball Cards here on YouTube, including coming in a custom Double D graded slab, which looks just fantastic. I love everything about this. Betts, of course, got off to a piping hot start to the year overseas with those couple of games that were played early. And then in the first month or so of the season, nobody was talking about Aaron Judge or Shohei Ohtani. They were talking about Mookie Betts because he really got off to the races. He did deal with some injury, missed a little bit of time, but in the end put together another solid year, and then culminating in a World Series championship, his third World Series, second with the Dodgers. And outside of Freddie Freeman, I think Mookie contributed to the offense during that key push through the end of the playoffs more than anybody else on the roster. So I have the Independence Day from my buddy Dylan. And then another one that I've shown before, was fortunate enough during the season to pick up the Topps Black for Mookie as well. And these cards look great. I really love the design that Topps gave us for 2024 flagship. It's something definitely different. Love it or hate it. If you have a strong opinion, either way, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. But I think this is one that we'll look back on fondly, and it's instantly recognizable. So great job by the folks at Fanatics. And then the finale is a pretty big card here. One of my bigger purchases from the summer that I've never shown on the channel. It wasn't, you know, a bank breaker or anything like that, but I think it did just qualify for authenticity guarantee by a few bucks. So that gives you an idea. Picked up the Shohei Ohtani Topps Black in a PSA 9. Just an incredible card. As much as anything out here, I'm just really honored to have this in my collection. Not an easy card at all. There are just 73 copies of this one out there. You can see I have copy 48 of 73. These are a tough grade as well. Topps Black, I've submitted these, a couple of these myself, and not done particularly well. The black borders, the edges, and the backs even really prone to chipping, corner issues. To get this card in a fine 9, limited nature like this, long-standing parallel that I love collecting, and I know quite a few other collectors who do as well. Very popular overall parallel in the hobby, and of course, representative of his epic 2024 season. 50 home runs, 50 stolen bases, had never been done before. And I understand that the stolen base numbers have increased dramatically in recent years. I get it. But that's not a reason not to celebrate that accomplishment and enjoy him as a player. And it's pretty insane that somebody who is injured enough that he couldn't pitch and had to be relegated to just a DH role this year could still put up numbers like that. Like Aaron Judge, a little bit of an anticlimactic postseason, but unlike Aaron Judge, ended with the championship, got his ring to add to his many accolades, and is likely, alongside Aaron Judge, to be your MVP for 2024. So in all likelihood, this is the pair of MVPs from Major League Baseball in matching Topps black parallels. And one of my sneaky, nicer Shohei Ohtani cards. This obviously his first card, flagship card with the Dodgers, and a really awesome image in addition to representing the important season that just concluded. So that's a wrap. That's my small collection, believe it or not, at this point, of 2024 Topps Baseball. There are one or two players that I would like to add. So this may grow slightly from what you see here, but not significantly. These days, I'm much more content, having a very small controlled pile of, 10 or a dozen cards to represent a season. And I don't need boxes and boxes of cards cluttering up my home office here. So thank you so much for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed this sort of recap on my collecting 2024 here in the hobby. I appreciate your time so much. And as you know, I'll be back soon with some more sports card content. Till then, take care, everybody.